When considering any sort of profession, a good question to ask is how old is said profession? And one of the examples that people point to, because there's a lot of good data about it, is the accounting profession. We consider it to have been around for at least 8,000 years because what you're seeing here in front of you is a cuneiform tablet that records the sales of alcoholic beverages from one individual to another. So we've been selling beer to each other for at least 8,000 years, and that has over that time allowed the accountants to formalize their practices into something called generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. That foundation is very helpful, and about 80% of organizations use GAAP accounting methods around the world and across the United States. When we trace the origin of the data profession back, it tends to go back to a woman named Ada Augusta King, who also held the title Countess of Lovelace and was Lord Byron's daughter, if you happen to have knowledge of that portion of history. She had a short life, but during that time she was extraordinarily productive, and one of the things that she gets credit for is the foundation of our industry, in that she looked at this weaving loom here, and you can see this is a very simple example of a weaving loom where you pass different colored thread through and it makes different patterns on it. The one she was looking at was actually an industrial weaving loom that was for creating industrial products, in this case rugs, and these control cards controlled the way the loom made the patterns, hence the rugs. And she was able to look at this and say, oh my goodness, I believe that I could create a process by which, when these machines are built to be more efficient and effective, could do math for me. So this was her calculation for Bernoulli equations as part of this. These became instantiated into the punch cards that you see slightly to above all of that. Now, again, Ada Augusta King did a lot of things. One of the other things that she did, though, was create something we call the hype cycle. So her writings read as follows: in considering any new subject, there is a frequent tendency to first overrate what we find to be already interesting or remarkable, and secondly, by a sort of natural reaction, to undervalue the true state of the case. In other words, at first we really like it, but partly probably because it's new, and then we get used to it and we figure it's not as great as we thought it was at one point in time. There's a wonderful song by the Eagles called "The New Kid in Town" that deals with exactly that same concept on this. And let's take it one step further. This is something that the Gartner Group, which is an advisory group, has put together that everybody is fairly familiar with, and it's useful to explain things. Again, I'm going to give the credit to Lady Ada here in particular, but you'll notice the blue dot forming in the bottom corner. That's a technology trigger. Somebody comes up with something cool new from a technology perspective, and it gets to the peak of inflated expectations, travels through the trough of disillusionment and the slope of enlightenment onto the plateau of productivity. Now, of course, what Lady Ada said was, wow, we like it really a lot, and then we probably disvalue it, and the answer is somewhere in between, which is, of course, all that this says. And what Gartner is been quite good at is predicting the length of time it takes for us to understand the true nature of certain advances in technology around all of this. And in the data industry, the real problem is that most people are stuck in the top of the hype cycle. They get excited because something new comes along every 3, 2, 1 year and says it's going to solve all of our problems. And we've already seen that those are mainly people and process problems. The technology is not going to be able to solve this at all. But it's still very important to be aware of the the hype cycle, and of course Lady Ada's involvement in all of it.